Song Shi, a supermarket owner in the 21st century, woke up to find herself in an extremely difficult era of material scarcity and married into a mountain valley with extremely difficult conditions. Unexpectedly, the supermarket opened in a small town became her personal space, and her husband next to her was an excellent person who could hunt, fish, and farm. Song Shi believes that being a low-key wealthy person with a loving husband, 2 or 3 confidants, endless fruits and vegetables to eat, and living one's own little life is also quite good. Farming, plus, food, keywords of the novel. Supermarket space. Crossing the era to marry the Rouge no pop-ups, supermarket space. Crossing the era to marry the Rouge complete collection download, supermarket space. Crossing the era to marry the Rouge latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Wake up. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Wake up. The scorching sun in August is like fire, and the earth is like a steamer, so hot that it makes people gasp for breath. The leaves on the mountain drooped their heads listlessly from the sun. The grass by the field was also wilted by the sun, like eggplants beaten by frost. Cicadas tirelessly sing their self-proclaimed beautiful symphonies on the branches. But it made everyone feel incredibly bored. In the scorching mud and water, villagers dressed in rags are working feverishly. Someone picks seedlings, someone transplants them, and the sweat on their forehead drops drop by drop, blending with the mud and water. A female comrade who was planting rice seedlings in the field raised her hand and wiped her sweat-soaked eyes. Looking up towards the direction of the village, there was a hint of concern in my eyes. Li Jie, Zhou Yi's wife has returned, hasn't she? What did the doctor say? Can she be well? A female comrade next to her opened her mouth curiously, with no other intention, just pure curiosity. What does it have to do with you? I just know how to inquire about other people's affairs. Anyway, your son cannot marry such a cultured person, so you should envy him. Aunt Li gave her a displeased glance. Have you always been worried about other people's affairs and taken care of your own affairs? I'm just asking, what can't be said? I didn't say anything bad about him. The female comrade next to her couldn't help but complain. She had heard that Zhou Yi's wife was seriously injured, and the old doctors in the village said she couldn't do it anymore. She could prepare for her future affairs. Zhou Yi borrowed money everywhere and sent the person to the commune hospital. Afterwards, it was brought back, and I don't know if it can be saved. Aunt Li looked up in the direction of the village again, and she was also very worried. Zhou Yi's daughter-in-law hasn't woken up since she was seriously injured, and the old doctor said she can't. I don't know if the doctors at the commune hospital have the ability to save people. She has never met Zhou Yi's daughter-in-law, and she doesn't know how the girl is like. But even though Zhou Yi spent so much money to get married, she didn't want anything to happen to that girl. Song Shi endured the pain on the back of his head and the bitterness in his mouth, and slowly opened his eyes in discomfort. Suddenly, a sharp pain came, and a memory that did not belong to her suddenly appeared in her mind. The brief life of a little girl also known as Song Shi flashed through her mind like a movie clip. The little girl named Song Shi is the unpopular daughter of the Song family. Living at home is very difficult, washing clothes, cooking, and farming is even harder than an old scalper. As soon as I got older, I was married by Grandma Song to a distant mountain. I got married without any dowry or new clothes. As soon as he entered the mountain, Song Shi, who wanted to escape, used the excuse of having diarrhea to go to the forest for convenience. Grandma Song was very cautious, and within 2 minutes of Song Shi entering the small forest. Then the accompanying Song family was sent in to call out to her. Upon discovering that Song Shi had escaped, after a series of pursuits, Song Shi unexpectedly rolled down the mountain slope. Song Shi ended her brief life at the age of 17 like this. Slowly, the two memories merged, and Song Shi understood. Originally, she traveled through time and onto this girl, also known as Song Shi. she just couldn't figure out why she was traveling. Why did she suddenly cross the river when she was not sick or disaster-stricken? Song-shi, who couldn't understand, just lay motionless. Her lifeless eyes have no intersection, and she doesn't know what she's looking at. In fact, she can't move even if she wants to. Because when little Song-shi fell and rolled down the mountain slope, the back of his head was smashed and he shed a lot of blood. It was sent here again, bumpy all the way without timely treatment. She was so weak that she couldn't even move her fingers when she just came through. Song-shi's mouth was dry and bitter. She wanted to drink water and remove the bitterness from her mouth. But her body was soft and flaccid, with no strength at all, just a state of being on the brink of death with more intake and less output. She also doesn't know if she can get through this difficult time. Now I can only pin my hope on the newly married husband who I have never met before, hoping that he can show kindness and save her. She will remember this kindness and find ways to repay him in the future. Suddenly, a soft touch came from the dry lips. Then warm water slowly flowed into her body through her mouth, gurgling. Song-shi greedily swallowed the source of life. A burst of hot water poured down her stomach, and Song-shi felt a little comfortable in her body, but she still didn't have any strength. Song-shi wanted to continue drinking some hot water, but the shadow in front of him disappeared. A well-proportioned tough face appeared in front of her. Watching him put down the bowl and wipe his mouth with his hands, Song-shi's stomach felt a wave of nausea. Unexpectedly, he fed her the hot water in this way just now. Song-shi felt nauseous and wanted to vomit, but there was nothing to vomit because her stomach was empty. I don't know how many days she lay down, but in the past few days, Jo-yi relied on this method to feed her some water and medicine. However, every time Jo-yi feeds her, he brushes his teeth and washes himself clean. I'm afraid my daughter.in.law will dislike him after she gets better. But as I watched my little daughter.in.law frown and look sorrowful, Jo-yi knew that he had been despised by his daughter.in.law. He felt that he looked average, not as fair and delicate as a city man, and could not marry a wife. In addition, this place is located in the mountains, with few paddy fields and less arable land, resulting in lower income for everyone. Few girls are willing to marry in. There are many bachelors in the village, but the village head is wise and agrees that everyone can borrow money to marry a wife in the village. He borrowed money from the village and married his wife, but he didn't expect her to fall ill before she entered the house. He looked for an old doctor in the village, who was not skilled in medicine. Without even looking, he said that his wife was not good. Jo-yi was very angry, and later borrowed money from the villagers to take his daughter.in.law to the hospital of the commune for medical treatment. After the doctor examined her, he told him that his wife had a broken head and lost too much blood, and it was not a so-called illness. Jo-yi realized that he had been deceived, but he had no intention of giving up on her. Since you have entered the door, that is his wife. Life is his person, death is his ghost. Even if he pays all the costs, he will still save her. The hospital told Jo-yi that they couldn't cure his wife either. There was an old doctor who felt sorry for them, so he asked him to go find an old Chinese medicine practitioner, perhaps there was still a glimmer of hope. Jo-yi took his daughter.in.law to find the old Chinese medicine practitioner. The old Chinese medicine practitioner doesn't want to treat it because he doesn't want to get involved in a lawsuit for human life. But Jo-yi said that as long as he is willing to treat it, he will send him 2 ginseng plants. The old Chinese medicine doctor, considering the benefits of ginseng, prescribed medicine for Song-shi, only for regulating the body. So now Jo-yi still owes 2 ginseng plants to the old Chinese medicine practitioner. But he has been taking care of Song-shi these days and doesn't have time to go up the mountain to find ginseng. He doesn't know medicinal herbs, but he knows ginseng. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Awkwardness. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Awkwardness. However, neither Jo-yi nor the old Chinese medicine practitioner knew why Song-shi was able to survive. It's because just as Song-shi died, he came over. It's just too weak to wake up. It's not because the old Chinese medicine practitioner is so skilled. Watching Song Shi frown with disdain, Zhou Yifei was not angry, but rather very happy. Why are you happy? Naturally, it is because his daughter-in-law's body is slowly recovering and will not leave him. Being stared at by a stranger with such a piercing gaze, Song Shi felt both embarrassed and uncomfortable. I didn't want to look at him, so I had to close my eyes. She couldn't accept the fact that she had a husband right after waking up. Although this husband looks quite handsome, he doesn't understand him at all. How awkward it is for two strangers to come together. Gulu gulu. As soon as Song Shi closed his eyes, his stomach made an awkward sound. She awkwardly opened her eyes and looked at Zhou Yi with a hint of longing in her eyes. She can't move now, everything can only rely on him. From Song Shi falling down the mountain slope, she crossed over and woke up. I don't know how many days have passed. Anyway, her stomach is really starving. I guess the nausea just now was not because I despised him, but because I was hungry. You wait. Zhou Yi glanced at his daughter-in-law and left with an empty bowl. After a while, another bowl came in, which was full of broth. Just no seasoning. In this era where everyone can't even eat oil and salt, how could there be seasoning? It's really difficult to feed soup without a spoon at home. Now that Song Shi has regained consciousness, it is no longer realistic to feed him with his mouth. Zhou Yi had no choice but to place the soup bowl on the nearby table. Carefully reaching out, he helped Song Shi up. Afterwards, bring the bowl in front of her and let her drink slowly with her head down. Just as I lifted her up, I heard her gasping in pain. I think I must have touched the wound on the back of her head. Zhou Yi quickly apologized, I'm sorry, daughter-in-law, I touched your wound. After listening to Zhou Yi's words, Song Shi really wanted to roll his eyes. I really want to refute him, who is your wife? But now she is so weak that she can't even do such a small thing. Now she is like fish on a chopping board, ready for slaughter. Zhou Yi was afraid of starving Song Shi, so he quickly put the bowl to her mouth. A faint fishy smell drifted into Song Shi's nose. Suddenly, Song Shi felt nauseous and wanted to vomit. But my stomach was too hungry, so I had to hold my breath and take a gentle sip. Light and tasteless, it's not as good as plain water, it's really hard to drink. Song Shi once heard the elderly say that people in this era are really suffering. She can now enjoy meat soup, and it's unclear how much effort Zhou Yi has put into it behind the scenes. If she continues to dislike it, it's really a bit hard to justify. Song Shi endured nausea and slowly finished a bowl of meat soup, taking small sips. My body is too weak. After drinking this bowl of soup, my whole body is sweating. Weakness nestled in Zhou Yi's arms. She felt embarrassed and wanted to stay away from him, but she couldn't do it herself. Seeing her finish the broth, Zhou Yi finally let go of his suspended heart. He placed the empty bowl on the table next to him, and then did not put Song Shi down. Instead, he continued to hold her like this. Watching the little daughter-in-law with several circles of white medical gauze wrapped around her head, she finally regained consciousness. He only felt his heart filled with joy. Before, Song Shi lay in bed and could only see the thatched roof above his head. Now leaning in Zhou Yi's arms, his vision has also broadened a lot. Can have a clearer view of the house where she will live from now on. The room is quite large, about the size of her living room in a modern house. Apart from the cabinet for clothes and blankets, there is nothing else to add with a bed. So the whole room appears particularly spacious and desolate. The bed she is sitting on now looks very new, probably made new. The walls of the house are made of mud bricks mixed with straw. From the ground up 1 meter, all were covered with newspapers and paper, some of which seem to be paper from textbooks. I estimate it was bought from a garbage dump. Looking at the entire house, Song Shi had only one idea, which was poverty. In this era, rural areas are too poor, with insufficient food and clothing, and unsafe living conditions. Only when working as a worker or studying can one truly stand out. Unfortunately, the original owner's reading opportunity is gone. The reason why the original owner was able to read before was not because the Song family was so kind and paid for her education. But she herself asked some good little boys to borrow money for her to read. This 1 cent, that 1 cent. She has a small ledger of her own, and she keeps a record of how much money everyone lent her. I plan to work and earn money in the future, and I will receive double the reward. After all, adding icing on the cake is easy, but giving charcoal in the snow is difficult. She is also grateful to those little boys who are willing to help her. The original owner's performance is relatively good, but in this era of scarcity of clothing, food, and extremely difficult living conditions. It was extremely difficult to get into the best high school in the county, but she did. If you continue to study, there is a high possibility of getting into college. A secure iron rice bowl in the future, but this opportunity is gone like this. Thinking of these things, she suddenly felt sad. Suddenly anxious, can she really live well in this era? Can she really earn money to repay her kindness? Thinking about this, Song Shiwei let out an imperceptible breath. The top priority is to take good care of your body first. Then take a closer look at this era. See which methods of making money are applicable in this era. In no time, Song Shi fell asleep in a daze. Zhou Yi gently put Song Shi down. She brought a basin of warm water from the stove house, wiped her hands and face, and then closed the door and went out. Zhou Yi arrived at the well, picked up the wild boar meat soaked in a wooden barrel, and walked out the door. A few minutes later, he arrived at the gate of a slightly farther fence yard and shouted inside, "Dad." Zhou Yi kept shouting twice before a middle-aged man with a darker face walked out of the room. With no expression on his face, he couldn't see joy. "What are you doing?" This middle-aged man is Zhou Zhonghua, the father of Zhou Yi. Shijing doesn't like living with her son. I applied for a homestead and built a house for my son when he reached adulthood. The villagers in this village are free of charge for their homesteads, mud bricks used for building houses, and everything else. Just provide a lunch to the person who is helping. How could he possibly miss such a great thing? So their family has 3 residences. Zhou Zhonghua, his eldest son, and his youngest son Zhou Yi. However, the eldest son has been away for many years without any news of his life or death. Now only Zhou Zhonghua and Zhou Yi live in this village. When Zhou Zhonghua walked to the edge of the fence, Zhou Yi handed the wild boar meat in his hand to Zhou Zhonghua and said, "Dad, give me a new old hen." End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Wrestling. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Wrestling. Just now when Song Shi was drinking meat soup, Zhou Yi noticed that she despised wild boar meat soup. Zhou Yi never expected that someone would dislike such a delicious broth. Since she doesn't like to drink wild boar soup, let's exchange it for old mother chicken soup. I'm sure she wouldn't mind the old mother's chicken soup. Song Shi woke up. Zhou Zhonghua took the piece of wild boar meat and didn't wait for Zhou Yi's answer before turning around to catch the old mother chicken in the chicken coop. If Zhou Yi comes over, it means that Song Shi is awake. Otherwise, he wouldn't have time to go out either. Hurry up and leave, don't disturb me for a nap. Now that you're married and separated, you can apply to the village office to raise chickens and see how many can be approved for you. Zhou Zhonghua stuffed the old hen raised to lay eggs into Zhou Yi's arms, then turned around and returned to the house. Just finished summer harvest and autumn planting, there's nothing to do now. The village chief will not require everyone to work, and will notify everyone in advance through the loudspeaker if they want to work. After sleeping for a while, Song Shi woke up as if he had been salvaged from the water. Based on the original owner's memory, she realized that it was a hot summer and she had just finished the double snatch. Before Song Shi got married, she engaged in 7 days of double robbing. All the work was counted under the name of Grandma Song, but she didn't bring anything out. I just brought a few tattered clothes that she usually wears and can't be worn anymore. Song Shi, who had previously consumed a large bowl of soup, now feels a bit like going to the bathroom. She tried to move her legs and felt her strength come back, so she slowly moved towards the bedside. When she stood up confidently with her feet touching the ground, she suddenly pounced forward. Knees heavily hit the muddy ground, with the entire upper body lying on the ground. Song Shi was both angry and embarrassed. He didn't expect himself to be so old that he could even fall off the bed. She finally understood why people who are sick or paralyzed have such a hot temper. Who can face their family calmly when such a thing happens? Zhou Yi was stewing chicken soup in the kitchen and was unaware of what was happening in the bedroom. When he felt that time was running out and came to the bedroom to check on Song Shi's situation. Seeing Song Shi lying on the ground, his heart twitched and he quickly ran over. "Wife, how are you doing?" Zhou Yi picked up Song Shi from the ground and placed him back on the bed. Seeing the two prominent red patches on her fair knees, Zhou Yi's face showed an angry expression. If I wanted to scold her for something, why didn't I know to call him? After a moment's thought, she should be speechless for now. So I had to suppress my anger and quietly sulk. Song Shi felt very embarrassed when he saw the red on his knee. I didn't expect the original owner's body to be so delicate. With such a gentle tap, it turned red like this. She carefully looked up at Zhou Yi and met his complex eyes. There is both anger and anxiety, a bit incomprehensible. After all, she only officially woke up today, and the two of them can be considered to have a direct intersection. Zhou Yi shouldn't have risen to the level of caring for her, right? Where is the restroom? I want to use the restroom. Song Shi opened his mouth and tried to speak, but to his surprise, he could really speak. If there were a crack in the ground at this moment, she could really feel ashamed and dive into it. It's too awkward. In the future, if you have something to say to me, don't move around on your own. Zhou Yi felt helpless, but still reached out to pick up Song Shi and walked outside. At this moment, it had already passed the hottest hour of the day, but the sunlight was glaring, giving Song Shi a feeling of being separated from the world. Song Shi reacted and blushed, quickly speaking out in rebellion, "You let me down, I'll walk over by myself." "Are you sure you walked over, not crawled over?" Zhou Yi lowered his head and saw clearly the red ears of his daughter. Law. "You entered my door, it's my daughter. Law. What's wrong with you? Besides, I've been taking care of you these days and helping you take a bath and sweat every night. I'm sorry for being late at this time." The final result was that Song Shi was carried by Zhou Yi to the restroom and then carried back to his room. As soon as he got into the bed, Song Shi grabbed the old clothes next to him and covered his face with a deceptive demeanor. Zhou Yi sat down next to Song Shi, reached out and pulled off the clothes that covered her face. A malicious curve curved at the corner of his mouth. "The weather is hot, don't cover yourself with heatstroke. Marrying you will add you to see a doctor. Your husband and I have already lost everything and owe a lot of debt. If you get sick again, I will have to go up the mountain to hunt wild boars. That wild boar is so ferocious, and it has two long fangs that can easily break a tree. If it attacks a person, it will disappear. Do you have the heart to let me go up the mountain to do such a dangerous thing? If I have an accident, I will leave my daughter. Law behind. I'm alone now, how pitiful it is." "Ah, ah, ah," Song Shi roared in his heart, how could this person say so with his mouth? Has she admitted to being a daughter. Law and a husband? Song Shi gave him a mournful look and said, "Can I stop hiding? Can you stop talking? It's too noisy, like an old lady. Wife, please take a break first. I'll go and serve you chicken soup, mother's chicken soup." Zhou Yi reached out and touched Song Shi's forehead, as if he would see a doctor. Afterwards, he went to the kitchen in Song Shi's eyes. Quickly brought over a bowl of fragrant chicken soup. It's really fragrant enough. Although the oil has been skimmed almost, it can still be seen from the soup that it is the old mother chicken soup that has been raised for a long time. He was really willing to slaughter such a precious old hen. You should know that in this era, many women who have given birth cannot drink such good old mother's chicken soup. Song Shi's treatment is simply a luxurious and distinguished guest. Song Shi has some strength on his body, so he can slowly sit up without relying on Zhou Yi's help anymore. However, she didn't have the strength to pick up this big bowl of chicken soup. Zhou Yi brought the chicken soup to Song Shi, and she could drink it as soon as she lowered her head. As Zhou Yi watched his little daughter-in-law drink the chicken soup he had made, he felt quite satisfied. Daughter-in-law, I'll go to the commune in a few days and buy everything we need at home. Do you have anything you want to buy? I'll buy it for you. Can you take me with you? Song Shi looked up from his bowl and his big, watery eyes looked at Zhou Yi like this. Zhou Yi felt like his heart was about to melt, and his little daughter-in-law was too cute, right? Of course I want to take you with me. If you don't go, how can we have a check-up? He is very concerned about his daughter-in-law's physical health. The daughter-in-law he finally married back, of course, he hopes that his younger daughter-in-law can accompany him for a lifetime. Do you still need to have a re-examination? So. Do you have money for a re-examination? Didn't you say you've already lost everything? Although marrying a wife is cheap in this era, the income is also low. So marrying a wife is also a big challenge, otherwise how could there be so many bachelors in the countryside? Zhou Yi looked at the little daughter-in-law in a circle and just smiled, without explaining so much. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Chicken Soup. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 5. Supermarkets. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Supermarkets. Although the rough man in front of her is her cheap husband. They are considered married, and he treats her well and takes care of her wholeheartedly. But she can't accept it now, at least temporarily. Wife, I'll wash the dishes later. Now I'll take you back to your room because there are too many mosquitoes outside. Zhou Yi stood up and came to Song Shi's side, picking him up from the chair. It's the romantic and beautiful princess hug in idol dramas. However, Song Shi's eyes were not as romantic and beautiful. The better Zhou Yi treated her, the more she felt about Alexander. If Zhou Yi repays his kindness in the future and doesn't want any money, as long as she does, what should he do? With Zhou Yi's help, Song Shi worked hard and shyly to complete the grooming work. Zhou Yi placed her on the bed and went out to tidy up the dishes. But Song Shi quickly fell asleep in a daze. I dreamt that my life supermarket was completely emptied by employees due to her sudden disappearance. Song Shi instantly widened his eyes in amazement. Under the faint kerosene lamp, Song Shi gasped for breath, his heart wrenching with pain. That is the lifestyle supermarket she runs in the small town. A person goes through countless hardships from scratch. Has it really been emptied by those employees in the supermarket? That's her years of hard work. Perhaps it's because Song Shi has been talking about the supermarket all along. Suddenly, Song Shi disappeared from the bed. If anyone sees this disappearing scene out of thin air, they will definitely be scared out of their wits. At this moment, Song Shi looked at the familiar supermarket and goods in front of her, and was also greatly frightened. She didn't expect the supermarket she was worried about to appear in front of her. She stood in the aquaculture area, watching various fish sinking at the bottom of the tank without death or movement. And the basic shrimp in the shrimp tank, I find it unbelievable. On the counter next to the shrimp tank, there are frozen fish and shrimp stored there. Moving forward, there is the cooked food area, where meat is vegetarian and various braised dishes are served. Smelling the fragrant smell, Song Shi's mouth was filled with sour water. During the days when she was unconscious, it was Zhou Yi who fed her water and medicine. I only had a little soup today. Her mouth was bitter and astringent, very uncomfortable. Now smelling the fragrant smell, she felt like she could eat a cow. However, Song-shi also knew that he was currently physically weak. All functions have not been fully restored yet. You can't eat these heavy flavored foods, you can only eat them when your body is good. She's just not sure. When she gets better, the supermarket will still be there. If she suddenly gains and then suddenly loses, then she should be desperate. Song-shi strolled slowly in the supermarket with a heart pounding wildly. There was no one in the supermarket, it was very quiet, and she could only hear the sound of her own footsteps. Song-shi arrived at the entrance and exit of the supermarket, intending to go out and see if he could see the familiar street scenery. As a result, there was nothing visible outside, just a pitch-black area that looked a bit eerie and terrifying. And the glass door in front of her seemed to be locked in an invisible shackle. She can't push away no matter how hard she tries, she can't even get out. That is to say, she can only move within the supermarket and cannot go outside the supermarket. Song-shi, feeling physically exhausted, retreated to the cashier. Sitting on a chair, looking out at the darkness through the glass door in front of me, my mood felt a bit low. To be honest, she wants to go back to the technological world before. After all, those who drive supermarkets there have money, beauty, cars, and houses. When you're not busy, call in 2 or 3 friends, have afternoon tea, take photos, and watch movies. Don't be too comfortable in your childhood. Why stay in this era of not having enough to eat? Song-shi's mouth was filled with bitterness, and he reached out to take a box of chewing gum from the shelf next to the cash register. I took apart a piece and as soon as the mint flavor entered my mouth, I heard footsteps coming from a distant place. Song-shi remembered Jo-e, who was tidying up the dishes, afraid that Jo-e would find no one in the room when he entered, and a hint of panic surged in his heart. I don't know what to do, because she just inexplicably entered the supermarket and naturally didn't know how to leave. Song-shi, who was disorganized, shouted in his heart, I want to go out, and I want to go back. Then she returned to the bed before Jo-e entered, maintaining her original position without even moving her position. Jo-e, who had just cooled down with well water, walked over refreshed and lay down next to Song-shi. He turned to look at Song-shi and said, Wife, are you asleep? Do you want to go to the bathroom? Without waiting for a response, Jo-e lay down and closed his eyes. In no time, he heard a uniform breathing sound. Song-shi took a soft breath and was about to move a little to the side when Jo-e sat up again, feeling a little anxious. Wife, do you want to use the restroom? Song-shi was very surprised. Has this person ever served in the army? Otherwise, how could his senses be so sensitive? He had just fallen asleep, but when she vented her anger, he could wake up instantly. This man is definitely not as simple as he appears on the surface. No. As soon as Song-shi moved his mouth, he noticed chewing gum in his mouth and the remaining gum tightly held in his hand. Discovering that chewing gum could be taken out of the supermarket, Song-shi was extremely excited. Since something can be brought out, it means that other things can also be brought out. As long as she finds the right opportunity, she can use rice, flour, grains, and oil to improve her life. Realizing that everything was not a dream, Song-shi was so excited that he wanted to jump up. However, her body did not allow it, and she could only lie here calmly, but her excited heart was about to jump out. The lifestyle supermarket she opened surprisingly traveled with her. So her stepmother and stepmother's children won't get anything, and thinking about it makes them happy. She is really happy. However, while feeling happy, I didn't forget to immediately throw the chewing gum back into the supermarket. She doesn't want to be reported by Jo-e and then arrested for research. After all, wealth moves people's hearts. She is not familiar with Jo-e. I cannot guarantee whether this man will betray her for profit. Song-shi also wants to go to the supermarket to investigate the situation. Now that Zhou Yi is nearby, she is unable to go to the supermarket again to check the situation. I can only wait until tomorrow when Zhou Yi is out, and then go to the supermarket to study and research carefully. Don't make yourself happy in the end. Yi Gu, thank you. Thinking of Zhou Yi's care for himself these days, Song Shi sincerely thanked him. As a husband, he truly fulfills his duties. Zhou Yi reached out and touched Song Shi's forehead. Silly daughter. Law, what nonsense is it that our families should take care of each other? Is it possible that if I get sick in the future, you won't take care of me? Yi Gu, you can rest assured that if there really is a moment, I will definitely take good care of you. Song Shi said seriously, even if they were not together at that time. But as long as he needs it, she will never refuse. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Joyful Heart. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Joyful Heart. The kindness of a drop of water should be repaid by a gushing spring. Moreover, it is a life-saving gesture, and it is only right to make a promise with one's own life. But what she pursues is an emotional marital relationship. Instead of living together without emotions and living together. That's amazing. Don't think too much, go to bed quickly. Taking care of my body is the best thank you for me. Zhou Yi lowered his head and lightly kissed Song Shi's forehead. In fact, when he helped her take a bath before, he used hot well water without soap, let alone soap. So the faint fragrance on Song Shi's body was completely a natural fragrance. This faint fragrance fascinated Zhou Yi very much. He is very grateful that he has never even met before and has married such a good wife. Not only is she good looking, but she also has culture, making her the most cultured foreign daughter in law in their village. When Zhou Yi kissed Song Shi's forehead, Song Shi's heart roared and resisted. Fortunately, there was no unpleasant smell on him, he was clear and refreshing, otherwise she might have punched him. Of course, she can only think about it this way. Who made it extremely difficult for her to move now. She had just walked a few steps in the supermarket and was almost exhausted. The next morning, Song Shi slowly opened his eyes under the temptation of a fragrance. Sitting next to her, Zhou Yi saw her wake up and breathed a gentle sigh of relief. He was afraid that his daughter in law would fall asleep directly. Previously, taking care of his daughter in law was a responsibility and a husband's duty. But after a day of contact yesterday, he was already pleased with her, rising from responsibility to love. Wife, are you awake? Do you want to go out and wash up, or should I bring water in? Zhou Yi leaned over and asked. Yi Gu, could you please help me go out and wash up? If you don't walk, your leg muscles will shrink, and if you can't walk in the future, it will be ruined. Song Shi feels that his physical condition has improved slightly compared to yesterday, so it is possible to take a few steps. Besides, I walked a few steps to the space supermarket last night, didn't I? Zhou Yi quickly stood up, helped Song Shi up, and helped her walk outside the room. On a summer morning, with a cool breeze, I just walked out of the door. Song Shi was instantly awakened by the morning breeze. The distant mountains overlap, and the morning mist shrouds, making it as beautiful as a fairyland on earth. The air is mixed with a faint fragrance of grass and wood, which is very pleasant to smell. Song Shi lifted her head, closed her eyes, greedily enjoying the fresh air. She hasn't breathed such fresh and sweet air for a long time. After a while, Song Shi, who was feeling relaxed, slowly opened his eyes. Seeing Zhou Yi staring intently at him, Song Shi's face couldn't help but blush. She instinctively shifted her gaze away and only then did she notice the courtyard of Zhou Yi's house. It's a very ordinary farmhouse courtyard surrounded by wooden stakes. That wooden stake is not even as safe as Song Shigao. The thief jumped in as soon as he flipped over, it's really a defense against gentlemen rather than villains. The yard looks quite large, but many areas have not been properly utilized. Especially in the vegetable garden in the yard, there are sparse green plants that look like grass. Song Shi gave Zhou Yi a helpless glance. If I had such a farmhouse, I would definitely have raised 2 dogs and planted some flowers. Then plant your favorite fruits and vegetables. I will never waste such good land resources. Faced with Song Shi's helpless expression, Zhou Yi casually touched his nose. Then he helped Song Shi to the well and let her sit on a bamboo chair. Hand the teapot and toothbrush to Song Shi. Wife, can you brush it yourself? If not, I'll help you brush it. Let me give it a try first. Song Shi smiled awkwardly and quickly reached out to pick up the teapot and toothbrush. The toothbrushes and toothpaste of this era are not as good as modern ones. The toothpaste has a strange smell when used. The toothbrush is also very rough and uncomfortable in the mouth. But the conditions of this era are like this, there is no way to be picky. Song Shi finished brushing his teeth slowly, and sweat had already seeped out from his forehead. It can be seen how difficult it is for her now to handle such a small matter. When she noticed the branch in Zhou Yi's hand, she was a bit surprised and said, "Brother Yi, how do you brush your teeth with a branch? Can a branch brush your teeth?" After asking this question, Song Shi was stunned. Because she learned from Song Shi's memory since childhood. In this era, most rural people used willow branches to brush their teeth. Few people are willing to spend 50 cents on toothbrushes and toothpaste. Looking at the brand new toothbrush and toothpaste in his hand, Song Shi couldn't say anything picky anymore. Is it something she despises that doesn't work, or something that the vast majority of people can't afford? Gu. Song Shi felt a bit uncomfortable. Zhou Yiming has a savings of over 200 yuan. But even a few cents a share of toiletries are reluctant to buy an extra one. Zhou Yi reached out and took the toiletries from Song Shi's hand, placing them on a flat stone beside him. Afterwards, he brought over half a basin of hot water, added half of the well water inside, mixed it with warm water, dampened the towel, and handed it to Song Shi. Song Shi wanted to say thank you, but she was afraid that Zhou Yi would verbally educate her about this matter, so she didn't say thank you again. But she kept a note of Zhou Yi's care for her in her heart, and other matters will be discussed later. Song Shi's breakfast is noodles in chicken soup. There are few noodles. It's not that Zhou Yi is reluctant to give her food, but that her body is slowly recovering and she should eat fewer and more meals, not too much at once. And Zhou Yi's own is wild vegetable chicken soup, which contains a few wild vegetables floating in the chicken soup. No wonder he is so thin, even though he is so wealthy, he is not willing to eat. Song Shi felt sorry for him and gave him some chicken in the bowl. Brother Yi, your body is also very important. If you are tired, I may really have to die. So you should also take care of your body. Good days are yet to come. If it were someone else, I would probably give up on her immediately and get back the dowry and food. Where would he do his best to treat her and take care of her every detail? Well, the good days are still ahead. Thank you to my wife for caring about me. I won't be fine, wife. You eat quickly. Looking at the chicken in the bowl, Zhou Yibi felt so happy and satisfied. He is also someone that his wife cares about. Zhou Yi, can your wife go out now? The two were eating breakfast when a strange voice suddenly sounded. Song Shi turned his head and saw a strange ant standing outside the wooden stake. Zhou Yi stood up and looked at the ant outside the wooden stake with a smile. Thank you very much, Aunt Li, for your concern. I can't go out yet, but it's almost there. Then I won't disturb you for breakfast. When your wife is all well, I will come back and get to know you well. Aunt Li smiled and glanced at Song Shi, then turned around and left. She didn't look at Song Shi with a glance or malice. It's the kind of gaze that elders want to get to know younger generations. So Song Shi had no aversion towards her. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Aunt Li. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Aunt Li. After Aunt Li left, Zhou Yi explained to Song Shi, that was Aunt Li next door just now. She's not a bad person. If you have anything you don't understand in the future, you can ask her. Song Shirua nodded thoughtfully. Zhou-Yi grew up here since he was young, and he must have had contact with Aunt Li for a long time. Since he said Aunt Li is not a bad person, then she must not be a bad person. Having some minor flaws is also acceptable, after all, no one is perfect. After breakfast, Zhou-Yi escorted Song Shi back to his room and advised him anxiously, "Wife, rest at home while I check if there is any work to do. Don't be afraid when I'm not at home, I'll be back soon. I'll put the tea on the table for you so that when you want to drink, you can reach out and take it over." "Got it." Song Shi turned his back to him, feeling really embarrassed. Surprisingly treating her as a child, even though her body is now 17 years old. But she is a big sister who is almost 30 years old in her heart. After Zhou-Yi left, Song Shi lay in bed for about 10 minutes. After confirming that Zhou-Yi would not come back for a while, he got out of bed and tried his best to drag the bamboo chair behind the door. Then he sat there leaning against the door, so close to the courtyard door that he could come out of the space supermarket as soon as he heard the sound. She is afraid of space exposure and also afraid of suddenly appearing to scare others. Everything was ready, and Song Shi finally entered the space again to explore his life supermarket. She is the owner of this supermarket, and she is the clearest about all the decorations in the supermarket. She could accurately find what was inside and in any area with her eyes closed. As for why this supermarket followed her and became her golden finger, she didn't know what was going on. But is this important? It's not important. What's important is that from now on, her standard of living will be infinitely close to what she used to be in the world. Because Song Shi's lifestyle supermarket in the former world was located in a urban-rural area. Many things inside are actually prepared for nearby farmers. It is both affordable and practical, and is well liked by nearby farmers. Song Shi organized some daily necessities that fit this era, such as clothes, shoes, candles, flashlights, scissors, kitchen knives, cutting boards, bowls, chopsticks, spoons, rice, noodles, grains, oil, seasonings, etc. Keep it within easy reach of oneself. I plan to wait until Zhou-Yi takes her to the commune hospital for a check-up before taking it out. Then tell Zhou-Yi that she bought it. I'm sure Zhou-Yi won't doubt so much. Afterwards, I took a few watches without any text. We also packed 20 kilograms of rice, 20 kilograms of millet, and 20 kilograms of peanuts in transparent bags specially designed for supermarkets. I also took 20 packs of brown sugar and 20 packs of white sugar, and I plan to go to the commune that day to see if I can sell them for some money. She doesn't know much about this era, but she has watched many youth endorsements and also watched era TV dramas. Knowing that there is a night market in this era, you can trade quietly, just be careful. If there were no night market, I don't know how many people would starve to death. The entire supermarket is hers, she can take whatever she wants without the consent of others. Take out the things in the supermarket and exchange them for money in this era. According to the prices of this era, although it may seem a bit uneconomical. But she must exchange it for money from this era. She can't always let Zhou-Yi take care of her, and Zhou-Yi works hard to earn money. Although she and Zhou-Yi are not yet a true couple, Zhou-Yi is so kind to her and she also wants to help alleviate Zhou-Yi's stress. Afterwards, Song Shi also took a pile of seeds from fruits and vegetables. I took 10 packs of each one. I also went to the fishing gear area to get lobster nets, circular retractable fish cages, and fishing bait. After coming out of the space, Song Shi immediately picked up the seeds of the unpacked fruits and vegetables with his old clothes and hid them in the wardrobe. When her body is almost fully recovered, she will plant according to the season. The main reason for taking these things is because I'm afraid the supermarket will suddenly disappear. But with the seeds of fruits and vegetables and modern fishing tools, she can definitely live a good life in this barren era. After a busy day, Song Shi felt tired and hot. She reached into her clothes with a towel and briefly wiped them before lying down to rest. After a while, he fell asleep again, with a smile on his lips. Although in modern times, houses, cars, and money are all gone. There are only so many goods in the supermarket, maybe they will be gone after picking them up. But Song-shi is still happy. This is like giving charcoal in the snow. Can she not be happy? At least her life for the next few years is guaranteed. Besides, she and Zhou-yi will still work hard for their lives, not just sit idly by and have no fear at all. It can be said that the sudden appearance of the supermarket brought great courage and confidence to Song-shi. The future will definitely be better. Pinyin village is surrounded by mountains on all sides, with many mountains and few paddy fields. I just finished the double grab, and now there's nothing to do in the paddy field. Everyone is busy on the mountain. Zhou Yizheng was diligently weeding when suddenly someone patted his shoulder. He turned around and saw that it was his hairpin Zhou Ping. I am still a bachelor, and I am not in a hurry. Even if my parents are biased towards other children, I am not in a hurry. Why? Zhou Yi asked lightly. Now is the time for the pheasants to be plump. Otherwise, we could go to the fields and rivers to catch the pheasants at night. The pheasants can cook congee well, which can help your daughter.in-law to mend her body. Zhou Ping said, raising his hand to wipe his mouth, and his mouth was watering. Everyone is poor and has no meat to eat, so field chicken is also a good choice. The frog is used to stew congee. It tastes good with a little salt. But now he doesn't have a single grain of rice at home, and he can only wait for the distribution of grain in autumn. However, there is no division of rice in their village because all the rice is used for public grain. At that time, we can only use coarse grain to exchange for some rice in the village outside. But it won't cost a few pounds, and if you shell it into rice, it will be even less. Many families are reluctant to eat rice, and rice is only eaten during special periods, such as when someone gets sick or when there is an increase in population. No, my wife doesn't like to eat these strange things. Zhou Yi had already noticed that his daughter.in-law didn't like to eat wild boar meat. So I definitely don't like to eat game anymore. Things like field chickens and snakes, although delicious, he knew that his daughter.in-law would definitely not eat them. He won't eat anymore, so as not to be disliked by his daughter.in-law. Yo, yo, yo. Zhou Ping joked with a smile beside him, you've only been a wife for a few days now. It seems that your wife has won your heart deeply. It's not in vain for you to spend so much money to marry someone back, but her body. The matter of Zhou Yi's wife is well known to everyone in Pinyin village. Everyone knows that the Song family sent their seriously injured granddaughter over, and everyone sympathizes with Zhou Yi. I thought Zhou Yi would give up, but I didn't expect him to persevere. It was also a matter of kindness and righteousness. Everyone can see how tired Zhou Yi has been during those days. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Not bad. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Not bad. If Song-shi had decided to throw away the next week's righteousness, it would have been a wolf's heart and dog's lung. Soaking a pig cage would not have been an exaggeration. My wife's health, don't bother you, hurry up and do your work. Don't be scolded. Zhou Yibai glanced at Zhou Ping and continued working. What qualifications does a single dog have to give advice on his married life? What's wrong with his wife's poor health? He's willing to take care of her, can't he? Days passed by like this, the day before going to the commune hospital for a check-up. When Song-shi was sleeping in a daze, he heard voices coming from outside. She opened her eyes in confusion and rubbed her sleepy eyes. Reaching for the teapot on the nearby table, intending to take a sip of cold boiled water to clear oneself up. As a result, one of his subordinates did not investigate and the teapot fell off his hand, falling to the ground. Zhou Yi anxiously pushed the door open and entered. Wife, what's wrong with you? Song-shi was extremely embarrassed and forced out an embarrassed smile. I'm fine, I just woke up and didn't have the strength to hold the teapot. It's okay, I'll come. Zhou Yi bent down and picked up the teapot on the ground, then turned around and went out. Quickly carrying a cup of cold white, it opened up. In fact, he drinks well water directly, and the hot water at home is specially cooked for Song Shi. Zhou Yi came in and handed the teapot to Song Shi. Song Shi looked up at him and noticed that the middle-aged man behind him was a stranger she had never seen before. However, the facial contour is somewhat similar to Zhou Yi, but more mature than Zhou Yi, that is, older than Zhou Yi, so he should be a relative of Zhou Yi. Zhou Yi noticed Song Shi's sight and quickly moved aside. He said, "Shao Shi, this is my father. He has sent us rice and eggs. I will cook rice porridge for you in the evening so that you can get better and faster." Watching his second son's despicable appearance in front of his daughter-in-law, Zhou Zhonghua felt embarrassed. However, based on his son's appearance, he was fortunate enough to marry such a beautiful woman. I estimate that all the good luck in this life has been spent on marrying a wife. But it's also because the Song family is not a good person, otherwise Zhou Yi would not have been able to marry such a wife, no matter how lucky he is. Zhou Zhonghua looked at Song Shi, who was pale and had no blood on his lips. She is indeed very beautiful, with an indescribable temperament. He is a bit worried, afraid that a farmer like them won't be able to keep such a daughter-in-law. When Song Shi saw that Zhou Yi's father didn't dislike her, she knew that her father-in-law had accepted her in his heart. She smiled faintly and said, "Thank you, Dad. Dad, you can bring back the rice and eggs. We have something to eat." Through the memory of the original owner, she knew that people in this era, especially those from rural areas, lived particularly hard. So she, who has a small treasury, is not willing to eat things like father-in-law. You can live a good life with Zhou Yi in the future. Zhou Zhonghua said a word to Song Shi, then turned around and left. He is the father-in-law and it's not good to stay in his daughter-in-law's room. In fact, most elders hope that their children will be good, and Zhou Zhonghua is no exception. Although he doesn't know how to take care of children and doesn't have a close relationship with his two sons, he also hopes that his son can live a good life. Especially now that he is married to his wife, he hopes they can get along well and not have frequent conflicts, which can harm both harmony and wealth. Families like the Song family who throw out their educated granddaughters are still a minority. There must be some hidden truth behind it. At present, it seems that the problem is not with Song Shi, but probably with the Song family. However, Zhou Yi asked the Song family to sign a severance agreement, so there shouldn't be much trouble in the future. After Zhou Zhonghua left, Song Shi smiled and said, "Our dad is pretty good. Why didn't he live with you?" Although it was his first time meeting Zhou Zhonghua, Song Shi could still feel that Zhou Zhonghua was better than his father in the Song family. The father of the Song family doesn't even have her in his heart. Grandma hit her, mom hit her, and Song's dad didn't even fart, as if she was just an outsider. Zhou Zhonghua is even better than her modern father. Her modern father had an affair with her when she was young, and then divorced. Then, between her and her brother, her father took him away and quickly reorganized the family with her infidelity partner. She followed her mother, but her mother treated her average and there was not much deep affection between them. However, after earning money, she bought illness insurance and pension insurance for her mother early on. After retiring, my mother can receive a monthly pension of several thousand yuan. If she is sick, there is disease insurance that can be reimbursed, so she is not very worried about her mother now. Her family relationship is not harmonious enough, but the supermarket business is good, at least the revenue is satisfactory to her. Now that she's dressed here, I don't know how modern she is. Are you dead or mysteriously missing? I don't know if my parents are competing for her inheritance. Although her relationship with her parents is not deep enough, she really wants to give them a dream. Tell them that she is living well in another world, don't worry, don't make a big fuss over money and make it difficult for her brother. After all, their conditions are good now, and without her little money, they can still live well. Zhou-Yi was very happy that his daughter-in-law could accept his father so easily. He is afraid that his daughter-in-law will not get along well with his father, and he will be in a dilemma. But if the little daughter-in-law comes to his house alone, he will definitely prioritize her. My father is a loner. He likes to be quiet and doesn't like living with others. Zhou-Yi reached out and touched Song-Shi's hair. Daughter-in-law, take a rest first, and I'll cook rice porridge. After Zhou-Yi left, Song-Shi leaned on the bed and daydreamed, but in fact, her consciousness had infiltrated the supermarket. She wanted to take salted duck egg and shredded mustard greens, but she dared not. She has been recuperating at home and hasn't even left the door. How can she explain by taking out these things? So it's better to endure it. After taking care of your body, you can eat everything you want. In the evening, the two sat under the osmanthus tree in the courtyard to have dinner. Song-Shi's is thick white rice porridge with chicken. The thick smell of chicken is mixed with the faint smell of rice, and the greedy insects in his stomach are picked out. Song-Shi picked up her chopsticks and was about to start eating when she caught a glimpse of the wild vegetable soup in Zhou-Yi's bowl, causing her pupils to tremble. I didn't expect a big man like him to eat so little food at night. Did he get up in the middle of the night to irrigate the well? Thinking of carrying such a large supermarket and having so many delicious things with me. Zhou-Yi was drinking wild vegetable soup here, and Song-Shi's heart suddenly felt a strong sense of guilt. If she hadn't gone to the supermarket a few days ago, she could still eat good food with peace of mind, but now she really can't do it. This is the food saved by Zhou-Yi and Zhou Zhonghua through frugality. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Decoration. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Decoration. So Song-Shi took advantage of Zhou-Yi's carelessness, quickly picked up some hot bowls and poured half of the chicken and rice porridge to Zhou-Yi. Zhou-Yi came back to his senses and quickly refused, daughter-in-law, I don't like rice congee. Don't talk nonsense, just let you eat it. Song-Shi curls her mouth. She doesn't believe that he doesn't like white rice porridge. She can't bear to eat it. Even the bitter pot herb soup can be satisfied. How can she not like white rice porridge? Okay, I'll eat. Zhou-Yi smiled and said, my daughter-in-law feels sorry for him. However, he's really used to wild vegetable soup from snacks to big meals. As long as he can fill it with water, it's good. Who will pursue taste? But he has a wife now, and in the future, he can't be so casual about his food. If he treats his little wife unfairly, no one can treat her unfairly. After dinner, the two of them took a cool ride under the osmanthus tree for a while. Then Zhou-Yi took Song-Shi to the bathroom. Now Song-Shi can use some strength, and there is no need for Zhou-Yi to kindly help her take a bath. Just put her in a big wooden bucket, and she can do the rest by herself. Zhou-Yi put Song-Shi into warm water and said reluctantly, wife, when you're ready to soak it, call me and don't move around, so as not to fall. This half-meter tall wooden barrel is indeed an insurmountable obstacle for Song-Shi at this stage. It is absolutely impossible for her to come out of the barrel with her own strength, and it can easily cause a situation of flipping over the barrel, causing secondary damage to her body. I know. Song-Shi instinctively averted her gaze and looked up at him with embarrassment. Even though she was a more open-minded modern person in her late 30s, not the reserved and shy girl of this era, she still felt shy about such things. After Zhou-Yi went out, Song-Shi was immersed in warm water and felt extremely comfortable. She closed her eyes as if enjoying herself, and quickly sneaked into the supermarket. She took a bottle of bath gel from the shelf in the toiletries area, pressed the pump head, squeezed a few drops of bath gel, and then put the bath gel on her body. Fortunately, this bath gel was not the kind with more foam, otherwise she would not be able to explain the full bucket of foam later. In fact, Song-Shi really wants to wash her hair. It's summer now, and she hasn't washed her hair for a few days. Her hair feels itchy and almost stinky, but she has a wound on the back of her head with gauze wrapped around her head. Fortunately, Zhou helps her change her dressing in gauze every day, otherwise the wound is likely to rot. Just for this, she should repay Zhou well. Otherwise, it's hard to justify it. Even her modern mother wouldn't take care of her so carefully, she would only let her take care of herself. She took a bath and felt embarrassed to call Zhou in. However, she was afraid that her fall would cause more trouble for Zhou, so she finally called Zhou. Zhou wrapped her in a shower towel and sent her back to her room. In this era, the pace of life is very monotonous. There are no entertainment activities at night, and one can only go to bed early. She only knows that it is dark, but she does not know what time it is. Although she has prepared some watches to sell, the time on the watches does not match here, and it is useless to read them. She can only wait until tomorrow to go to the commune, find an opportunity to take out the watch and check the time, and leave a watch outside to check the time in the future. She lay in bed, gazing at the thatched roof above her in the faint kerosene lamplight. She couldn't help but miss the starry sky cinema in her house. Every night before going to bed, she would drink a little red wine, watch movies or TV shows for a while, or play holographic games. That life was much more stylish, but now I can only lie down obediently, listening to the croaking of field chickens and the sounds of some unknown insects outside the window. When she felt the position next to her sink a bit, she knew that Zhou had come back from taking a shower, and her whole heart was in her throat. Perhaps she had only slept with her father and brothers opposite sex when she was a child, and when she grew up, she had never slept with the opposite sex again. Now, with a man beside her, she was not only nervous but also a little scared. She is not in good health now, and Zhou won't move her. When her body recovers, she can't guarantee whether Zhou will move her. Which man is willing to spend such a big price to marry a decoration back? Don't be fooled by Zhou 100 yuan dowry, 20 pounds of fine grain, and 80 pounds of coarse grain, but in this era, there are already many, and most people really can't take them out. Wife, rest early. We need to wake up early tomorrow when we go to the commune hospital for a check. Otherwise we won't be able to come back in a day. Zhou glanced at Shi and saw that she was still keeping her eyes open, so he let out a warning. After Shi closed his eyes, he finally blew out the kerosene lamp. For the people in the mountains, kerosene lamps are all luxury goods because they need tickets to use kerosene. Since the people in the mountains don't have jobs, they naturally don't have tickets, so even a little kerosene needs to be saved. In the darkness, Shi was thinking about how to sell some things tomorrow and earn some money to come back. Thinking about it, he slowly fell into a deep sleep. The next morning, around 5 or 6 o'clock, Shi was called up by Zhou. After breakfast, Zhou carried Shi out and went to the village gathering point to take a cart. He was also preparing to go to the commune to buy some things, so he brought a backpack, with Shi on his back and a backpack hanging in front. Shi was in a very good mood because she could finally go out and experience everything in this era. However, all of this was built with the help of Zhou, and she couldn't complete it temporarily on her own. She still had this self-awareness. Several ants have already sat on the ox cart at the entrance of the village, and there is nothing else to do after the double robbing. Everyone has time to go out and buy. Although it doesn't cost much, we still need to find ways to buy daily necessities. Several ants saw Zhou carrying his new daughter-in-law on his back and moved to the side, hoping to give up the best seat. After all, Zhou's new daughter-in-law was a patient, with gauze wrapped around her head and a medicinal smell all over her body that she couldn't ignore. Hello, ants. Zhou originally didn't want to pay attention to them because he wasn't familiar with them, but they had already shown goodwill, and he didn't refuse. After saying hello, he took out a small pillow from his backpack and placed it on the cart. Only then did he put Shi down, so that Shi wouldn't be hurt by the cart. Zhou covered Shi's head with a brand new straw hat and sat next to her, waiting for the ox cart to depart. Due to the hot summer weather and the long distance, the ox cart set off early in the morning at 6:30 a.m. After more than 3 hours of long trek, it was less than 10 o'clock to reach the commune, avoiding the scorching sunlight at noon. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Review. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors.